What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video where I'm going to be discussing about my 350Z, problems that it has, problems that I've fixed, and a problem that I'm actually going to fix today. So when I bought this car, it was making a strange noise, and I assumed that it was my throwout bearing because it seemed to be whenever I pushed in the clutch, the noise would go away. So now I've put a new clutch, a new pilot bushing. It had an automatic pilot bushing in there. If you had seen that in the last video, you would have seen that. It put a new pressure plate, and I got my flywheel resurfaced. And that's what we did so far. And then I put the transmission back in, and upon first startup, the transmission was making the same noise. So at this point, in the last video, I had actually noticed that the input shaft had a little bit of play. And I mean, that was pretty defeating. You know, the gears were still pretty notchy, and I mean, it's not just one gear, so I'm not thinking it's the synchros. It feels like it's every gear, but it just felt pretty defeating. And it's really been on my mind, the fact, did I officially buy a lemon? That's what's been going through my mind. There's an exhaust leak, the valve cover gaskets are leaking, I'm having issues where there's a vacuum on my cooling system, noises from the transmission. I mean, today we're actually going to be addressing the exhaust leak issue. I've purchased a cheap exhaust from online. I mean, it was about $400. It's from flashark.com. We're going to be installing that today. I have not yet diagnosed the cooling system issue. I have gaskets on order for my valve cover gaskets, and other than that, I do believe the transmission is going to have to come out once again, and I believe that my issue is the input shaft bearing. Just very unfortunate. I'm not sure if I'm just going to have to pull off the front part plate on the inside of the transmission, or if I'm going to have to remove the whole casing and then replace that input shaft bearing. But I already have the input shaft bearing in, and I have transmission seals just in case. It's nothing I've ever done before. Never even pulled a trans before and replaced the clutch, but I did that in the last video. And if you haven't seen that, you should go check that out. That's where we're at today. So it's just really been on my mind whether or not I have bought a lemon. I mean, this is one of the things that you get when you buy project cars, and 350Z, I've been looking for one for so many years, and I found this one. It has 64,000 original miles, and I'm not sure if it just wasn't taken care of properly or what, because I mean, really, there's no way to tell. What I think ultimately happened is that automatic transmission pilot bushing bearing, whatever you want to call it, that was in the car is the reason why my input shaft bearing went bad. That's kind of what I'm boiling it down to. The clutch wasn't in the greatest of condition, but it also wasn't in the worst. It probably still had some life left, but there was some areas where it was like all the way down to the rivets. But I mean, I wasn't stressing that too heavily. Everything else in there was stock, so now the flywheel's resurfaced. It's got Z1 pressure plate, Z1 unsprung clutch, street performance, and then it's got a new manual pilot bushing. I'm glad that we got that in there. And there's also no rubber boot where my shift fork goes, so I also have the rubber boot to go for my shift fork, and whenever I go to do the input shaft bearing, I will put the boot on there. So that's just kind of where I'm at with this car. I've been a little bit on the fence about it. It has 64,000 original miles. I mean, it's not really something that you would expect from a car with 64,000 miles, but at the same time, it's a 20-year-old car. It's a 2004. So this is just one of those things when you buy a project car. It's gonna cost you money. It's gonna take time and work. I'm pretty fortunate that I'm able to have this space to work on my cars, and that I don't have to pay somebody to do it. In the future, I have to put in a lift, but there's some rafters in here, but I don't think they're structural. I think the rafters are for the garage works and whatnot, the openers and tracks and everything. So, but unfortunately, the transmission has to come out again. I'm not too pressed about it. At first, I was pretty bummed because I still heard the noise, and I've only put about 200 miles on this car since I've had it. And most of that was before I put a new clutch in it. I was very easy on the gears. I would just push it up and let it fall into place. Try to minimize as much grinding as possible due to probably the misalignment of the input shaft due to the bearing. So today we're going to address an issue. If you haven't seen the last video, which like I said, you should check that out, there was a hole in my flex pipe, which is why my car sounds terrible. So I'll let you hear what the car sounds like now with the flex pipe busted on there. I actually think I might have flipped the exhaust upside down because you can kind of just go either way. So the hole might be going up into the car instead of down into the ground. And it might sound a little bit better than it did before. But I mean, since I've had the car, it has not sounded the greatest with the exhaust and with the noise that the transmission was making. So let's go ahead and let's get you a sound of what the exhaust sounds like with the hole in the flex pipe. And then we're gonna go through tearing the exhaust off and putting the new exhaust on. But before we do that, I'm gonna show you the new exhaust. So this is the new exhaust. Now this exhaust is from flasharc.com, and the thing about this exhaust is it's kind of just like the Rev 9 exhaust, except it has blue tips. And they were about the same price. The Rev 9 was about $20 more, and I really wasn't, stressing the $20 more. It's just, I've seen people post about the Rev 9 exhaust, but I haven't seen people post about the FlashArc exhaust. So I figured I'd do something that I haven't seen anybody else do on YouTube yet. So that's why we got this exhaust, and we're about to get to work on installing it. It shouldn't be too hard to get my Y pipe out in the middle, because I already had that out not too long ago. And the other exhaust, not too sure. I've already lubed up all the exhaust bushings and whatnot, and I got me an exhaust bushing tool right here to kind of help with the process. So let's just get started. Alright, so I don't have too much room to work with under here, but right there is my high flow cats coming down right here into my Y pipe. So I gotta get these 4 bolts out and follow it up this way and get those 2 nuts off there, and then I get my Y pipe out. So let's bust this out real quick. Now I have all the nuts and bolts disconnected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start sliding out all these bolts, and then this exhaust over here is going to start to drop down, and once I do that I'll be able to slide out this backside. So let me do that real quick. Alright, so now following up, I just got the Y pipe out, following up from right there. And that's where I'm gonna have an exhaust bushing, but before I do that exhaust bushing, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna disconnect right here from the mufflers. So good news is we got the stock exhaust out. This thing was pretty heavy, but I'm telling you, if you're gonna do any type of exhaust work or whatever, this tool right here is the absolute goat. I was able just to literally just grab onto those bushings and just literally slide it right out. And I mean, it was still, you know, pretty difficult, but for the most part, it was so easy. So I finally got the exhaust mocked up, and I gotta say, fitment looks pretty good. Now, my point of view going underneath the car. When I was trying to mock everything up, I actually had to cut out a little bit of the bumper. It wasn't really that big of a deal because I had to get up into those sleeves up there. I actually had a lot of trouble with that one up there, and I had to pull it off of the sleeve right there, put the exhaust hanger through, and then put the sleeve back on up top onto these mounts. You can see a lot better over here, a lot more clearance. This side slipped right in easy. For some reason, this was on here, but this is a 350Z/G35, I believe, exhaust. So I believe that's just for G35. So everything's good right here. Everything lined up pretty good. Actually, I got real confused right here because I didn't know it was supposed to go over the sway bar and under right here. I actually had to look at a picture online to notice that, but once I realized that, it actually lined up a lot better coming up to here, which is pretty good. And actually there's a mount right here that I have sitting right there that I had to take off, and I'm gonna put that back on in just a minute. And then right up to here. Now, this side went on pretty good, but this side, I was able to get this bolt on, but then I could not get this lined at all. Like, it was pretty tough. I actually had to get a flathead, stick it through there, try to line it up, and then after I did that, I had to like hold it up and then slip the screw in. And then not only that, it didn't go all the way through, but luckily enough, it caught the threads. So I was able to thread it through enough to get the bolt on there until I was able to tighten it down and get it to level out. But I'm not sure if it was just these flick pipes needed to bend a little bit on this side or what. I mean, that's what they're here for. They're here to flex. But yeah, this one right here was pretty rough. But I got it, and now it's time to hear what it sounds like. Nice, so the exhaust is on there, and I don't hear any exhaust leaks. It sounds way better. I mean, it obviously doesn't sound the best. It was a really cheap exhaust. It's just what I could afford right now. And really, I wasn't gonna go too crazy. The car just sounded terrible with that exhaust leak, and plus it was a stock exhaust. So now it has the high flow cats, and then it's got this cab back exhaust. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this type of content, down below, you can subscribe, like if you want, comment, that'd be awesome. Peace.